What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Twisted Wanderer podcast. I'm your host, Jack, and today I have a very special guest, Miss Agnes from the I just messed it up. Simple, Beautiful Wellness, right? Did I say it right that time?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Yay. I'm sorry I messed it up, but I'm so happy to have you here and thank you for coming on. Yeah, first off, just tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey, your story. I know you've been through a lot to get where you are today. So, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I love the introduction. Yeah, so my story, it's going back to when I was a teenager. Was surprised one time in a gym class when, I was told I have scoliosis. Came
Okay.
out of nowhere, literally, from a left field. Um, and very quickly after that, after, being told by a nurse, that's what you have, I saw an orthopedic surgeon. And
Okay.
within a year I went for surgery. So my scoliosis wasn't actually, I was a borderline in terms of qualifying for surgery, but because of my age and because of the experience of that orthopedic surgeon, I was told that you can try bracing for a year, but based on my experience you'll have a surgery. That's what I see for you. Or you can go to the surgery. Being 16, I think everybody would
What?
make the same choice as I did back then.
What did you do? What was your choice
So
at 16?
my choice of course was to go for surgery. Can you imagine a 16-year-old that says, "Yes, I want to be braced for a year and then go for a surgery." Let's
Yeah,
just, right? Like
get
when
it
it's,
out of the.
let's get it out of the way. I want to enjoy my life, right? And
Yeah.
and also, like, this whole thing around surgery at that age might, you think it's gonna be like you're gonna have a straight back. It's gonna be right, like, there's no
Yeah.
understanding really of
No.
what it is, what's involved. And not that, I don't remember having a long discussion around what surgery involves besides, at that point, this was back in Poland. I was at the hospital that specializes in just orthopedic cases.
Okay.
So there were, I saw orthopedic surgeons that all needed fusion surgeries. I was there for 6 months with a lot other kids around the same age. Some of them were, really, like, we're talking about 70, 80, 90 degrees curves,
Wow.
to kids like me who were kind of like a borderline, or it's hard to tell. In my mind, it was hard to tell I have scoliosis because
Yeah, same.
obviously 50 degrees, it's on my back. I'm 16. I'm enjoying my life,
We're not paying
right?
attention.
No, and I had no pain. I had no symptoms. It's not like, you know what I mean? I was impacted in any
Okay.
way by my scoliosis. Um, so to me back then, it was truly, I kind of view it as like more cosmetic thing that I was told I needed to do,
Wow.
because if that curve progresses, there's going to be impact on my breathing, on my heart.
Hmm.
I was kind of like given, or at least I took away from that discussion, that worst case scenario, that that surgery is a good idea because this may progress, and when it progresses, these things may happen. um
Wow.
yeah. Yeah,
So I'm going to ask you a question. So 16, so you were diagnosed 3 years earlier, you said 13,
I was
and
diagnosed at
then
15. I was
you were
diagnosed at
diagnosed at
15,
15.
and then by 16, by 16, like around summer when I was turning 16, I had the surgery.
Okay. And you didn't experience, so that's like really cool
Yeah,
because, like you didn't experience pain at 16 years old. Where like I was the
nothing.
opposite. I was in
I
a
was
lot of
totally,
pain. So
I
that's
was in my,
interesting to me.
yes, no, I was in my little, world. I was enjoying life, enjoying friends, going to school. Literally, it came from like, okay, what is this? I have scoliosis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how do you feel? So take me through that. You had surgery at 16. What was recovery like for you then?
Uh, so you know what? We did a lot of prep. So I know now, I don't know how it is now in Poland. I know how it is here. Back then, it was 4 months before the surgery. We did a lot of prep. So that was like everyday gym, everyday cardio, like massages 3 to 4 times a week. Like it was a hospital that specialized. Like there were three like this in Poland where you could have gone for fusion surgeries. And that was like their primary focus. And then 2 months post surgery, you stayed in the hospital. So the whole like intensive care. So after the surgery, when I woke up, I was in intensive care for like a week. And then
Okay.
after a week, they move you to like a regular room, and you're lying down in a cast for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, they remove the cast. And that's where you first time, like that's when I was standing up first time. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so I
That's so
remember,
different and like
it is.
intriguing. How did you, the first question that comes to my mind, like
Yeah.
how was it just being, were you still? Like were you just,
Yes,
you had to be still for that long? Wow. How
yes,
was
for
that
2 weeks.
for you? Like at
So
16 years old, I feel like I would just be like, get me
you know, I think they, being there for 4 months, right? That
out.
kind of preps you. You are in a hospital for 4 months. Like it's a totally different environment. We did have school on site, like we had teachers and everything. So it's not like you going away for 6 months.
Okay.
You still had school. We still had to go into school. We still had treatments before and after school, and like all this, exercise and everything else had to be fitted in between. um so yes, the two, I remember that first week in that like intensive care being like the toughest, because that's really when you get a lot of painkillers. They start reducing the painkillers. From what I remember, I think day 3 or 4 post
Wow.
surgery. You still are connected, like your body's clearing from all this blood and everything, you know what I mean? Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. So I remember that first week being really intense, and then the week in when they move you to regular room, you kind of feel like you with friends because you have other kids around you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you're
That's
really looking forward to it. It's that the first week intensive care, you there. There's maybe and those surgeries were happening like 3 times a week. So you have another friend beside you who is either ahead of you and almost moving to regular room. You have somebody else who's coming post surgery, right? Um,
wow. That's like so, that's so interesting. They like really prepare you, set you up. I had like friends, and that's really nice because I
yeah,
feel like, it's scary to hear that you need surgery, but I can't imagine hearing it at like a young age. So it's nice that you had like friends, even though,
you make
it's a
yeah.
hard thing to
So
go through.
totally, and it's almost like you going away. Like I'm looking at it now, thinking like it's almost like you going away to a camp, right? Like you meet new people there, but then you are with them for that 6 months. Some leave, some come, but you kind of build friendships over that time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was definitely interested. Like I remember, I was really interested in understanding how the surgery looks like. Like, I spoke to the orthopedic surgeon, to the head of the hospital. I convinced him that I wanted to see the surgery video. Yes. So, there was a lot of concern that if I see it before surgery, I may back it out. But they did let me see it before surgery. Like I must have been
What?
very convincing.
You're a champion. I don't think I've never watched it. My mom watched it the day I was in surgery, like in the waiting room. I'm like, yeah, I still won't watch it. But it's
Yeah,
interesting, like what makes you feel more comfortable, everybody's story
totally.
and journey into the surgery. So if that's what you were that interested, and
Yeah.
you do with health, and so it's kind of like that followed you into like your adult life, like being into all like the health and being intrigued. So that's pretty cool. Wow. So kind of going off that, like 16 years old, when did 'cause I read you had 4 car accidents. When
Yes.
did this pain start to come? Take me like on a journey, kind of
Yeah.
take me on the journey of like where you are today, how you got here. Like so go
Yeah.
from Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So my pain actually started about 2 years post-surgery.
Okay.
Very interesting. So I
Wow.
never
That is
experienced pain before, but after surgery, and it wasn't constant pain. Like it would come like the nagging in middle of my back, like under the, where I have the hardware. My hardware, by the way, is perfect. Like never had any issues with my
okay. I
hardware.
was gonna ask.
So
Okay.
no, so
Good.
it's
That makes me happy for you.
yeah. And so yeah, so sorry, I'm trying to kind of weave in
No,
the
you're
car
fine.
accidents. So I had my first car accident when I was, I want to say 23, 24, somewhere around that. I
Okay.
was in the 20s. I had another one the same very shortly after, within a year. And at that time I already experienced back pain, but it wasn't like some weeks would have been better, some weeks were worse. It wasn't really, I don't want to say impacted me. If anybody lives with chronic pain, there's always, we start with very little limitations before we get into the extreme. So I was still going around, going on with my life. I had my oldest at that time as well. When I actually had those two car accidents, my oldest was a toddler. He was at the
Oh
daycare
my
at that
goodness.
time. But I recovered from them very quickly. Like I had the support from like a regular physiotherapist. Um, and I didn't really, think back too much about, what had happened. And with the back pain, I started experiencing more and more. I was busy working at corporate finance, wearing, I blame the heels every day, wearing the heels and commuting in heels
Oh boy.
every day.
Yeah.
Not the best
They're not our
idea.
friends. The
They're not
heels.
our friends. And I never really took the time to like take care of my body. You would think after going through my surgery, after spending 6 months in like exercising and seeing the benefits of it, maybe something stayed with me. Not really. I was that busy mom commuting, hour and a half one way, coming back home hour and a half, taking kids to all the activities, just never thinking about my body and what it may need, and sitting in a desk job, right? Really.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying any of these are bad. It's just I think it's combination of all the different factors that kind of,
Yeah. And it's
for me, where I ended up, like I never looked after, even nutrition. I was drinking at 1.5 cups of coffee a day, no water. That was like my main hydration source.
that
Um,
sounds like me. I'm on
right?
it.
I
I'm
think
on
I
that
think
journey. I'm the same way. I definitely like ignored after surgery. But that's what happens, you're young, you have
yes,
kids, you're going to work.
life
Like
gets busy and we kind of forget about ourselves and
we
what
do.
we need, right? Um, so between my first and my second, I did experience pain, but was something that wasn't, I actively wasn't pursuing anything. I was in a therapy on and off, always looking for somebody who understands scoliosis. It was really hard. People have so many different ideas about what it is and how to help somebody with scoliosis. So I was moving from like a therapy to therapy, never really being able to land on someone who can help me.
Help you.
And then my second daughter, she was quite a big baby, and that put a lot of pressure on my back. She was over
While
eight
she was,
pounds.
oh my goodness. I was gonna ask, like,
Yeah.
how was that? Like, how was that experience with a spinal fusion? Just you felt it more with this your second daughter?
I felt it more with my second and with my third one actually. So after I had her, that's when back like the pain intensified. But again, like my lifestyle was not supportive. Like in between my second and my third daughter, I have 8 months between all of my kids. I should disclose, so I don't have kids close in age. But you would think within that 8 years, you have enough time to maybe, kind of figure it out what you need to do. Perhaps I was in a yoga class like overall like 4 times in those 8 years.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah. So with my third one, I actually ended up being taking time off because the pain was unbearable. And that was like 3 months into my pregnancy where like I could not walk, I could not stand. So I started, looking into more natural support and like what my body needs. I started doing a program, I think it's called Hypno Babies or Hypno Birding or something like that. There's a program
Okay.
online for anybody who's, pregnant um, and who's trying to prepare. I found that very helpful because there's a mindfulness component to it as well. And then I was able to find a private yoga practitioner who accommodated for my pregnancy. And I've met her a few times a week. I
Okay.
found that helped me. And then I also went to the pool like every single day. And I felt like that was the best experience because, of course, I didn't felt any pain being in a pool, immersed in
Well,
the water. Right? I'm
it's
like,
the
this
best.
is the life. I'm like, that's the solution. I need a pool 24/7
I'll just
now.
be in water all the
Yeah,
time.
totally. And so after I had my third one, literally after the labor, the pain went away like a magic wand. I felt great until I went back to work. And when I went back to work, I want to say within 6 months, the pain started returning, started to stay longer and longer until few years into it, it gets so bad that I couldn't literally walk. Like I could not lift my left leg. So I was told that, I had herniated disc. It was pressing on the nerve. Um, I had neuropathic pain. Like I had different diagnosis from
Yeah,
a
a
medical
lot.
point of view. Yeah. And, because of my fusion, um, I couldn't really, they weren't recommending cortisol shots because there wasn't anybody who would be comfortable. And it was the same for my labor. Like the hospitals deemed me high risk because of my fusion surgery. They've told me like, no way we can give you epidural, um,
Okay.
just because it might be a risk to us, right? Um, so yeah, so when the pain started, I ended up really in that, like at the end of it in bed because I couldn't really walk anywhere. Um, like
How
even
old
going
were
to the,
you at
I
this
was,
point?
yeah, so I would have been 40, happened very quickly. My youngest one was a toddler. So I still remember like when she wanted a hug, she had to come over, like stand beside the sofa and I would hug her. Um, because
But you'd have to be sitting.
I couldn't even sit because I was only able to sit for like 5 minutes. And if she was sitting on my laps, like that was like painful. I was a mess,
Oh my
right?
goodness. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. That sounds like, and how long, like, I know you said you started research, but how long did
yeah,
that last when you were just laid down and really not feeling well, not being able to
yeah,
be there how you want to be there for your
yeah.
children? Like, how did you
So
get through that?
yeah, so that actually from like beginning to the end, I usually like it's 8 months that it took me to recover. And when I say recover, it wasn't like I was fully pain free. I was like 90% there. But I've tried different things and I got really desperate because my family doctor was just giving me Tylenol 3 for the pain. And I ended up like with like in a depression episode. So when it got like I had a week where I'm like in bed, feeling like this is end of the world, and I'm like
Yeah.
somehow this thought came in that this is not you. Like what is happening here? This is not normal. And when I thought that, literally started Googling. I'm like, is there a link between that pain, me taking Tylenol 3, like what's happening here? And it took me a bit, but what I came to find was that only 3% of people on the whole planet can get the side effect of depression from Tylenol 3. So it's not something like that would even come to the doctor, right? But like even putting the,
I mean, it should, but
yeah,
they're
yeah,
just,
yeah. Putting even that away, now that I know like how it impacts gut health, how the gut health is connected to our brain. I'm like, no wonder I was feeling like this, right? Like, because that was the only solution. Like, I could literally, at one of the visits when I saw my family doctor, she wanted to see my back. She saw it and she's like, how come your back is burned? I'm like, what do you mean it's burned? I'm like, do you know you are burned in your back? I'm like, no. She's like, what do you do at home? I'm like, I'm using heating pad. So I had it for such a long time, I guess, so, so hot. My back was burned and I felt like I didn't feel that, right?
yeah, we
That's how
don't, we
bad it,
don't,
like
yeah,
you just want to relieve the pain, like, and you, especially when you feel the pain, like it's not you're gonna feel more, you know what I mean? When you're at the
yeah,
extreme, right? So that was like really eye-opening exercise. I started looking into nutrition, and at that point, I actually almost finished off my course because I started earlier, but I wasn't continuing with it. So because I had extra time, I started looking into like nutrition, anti-inflammatory diet. Um, I was also, told that I have arthritis in my back. So I started looking at, an autoimmune protocol, arthritis diet. I started combining everything. And I felt like my inflammation went down through that, the whole, like, I want to say within 2 months, I felt better in terms of inflammation. Um, and the reason, like for me, that really looked like when I had inflammation, I felt like I had fever 24/7. I felt like my gums were inflamed. And for somebody who deals with inflammation, they can probably relate. It's such a weird feeling when you have it. It feels like you have it in your hair, you have it in your teeth, you have it in your eyes.
hmm,
So so that felt like really good for me, having that inflammation down. And I still remember like those 2 months when it cleared up. I'm like, wow, this is way to go. I found something, but it didn't take the pain away. So I still had the pain. It's just that inflammation was gone. And I
down.
could
Okay.
feel, yeah, so I could feel pain differently because of that inflammation being resolved, right?
Being gone.
Yeah. So then I started looking into it. And I don't know how I came across, I don't remember if I Google, I must have. I do have to say, one of the things I found through that 8 months journey was finding what Instagram is. I never used it before.
That's amazing. So you found it through that because you're
So I
researching.
per so I perhaps I did it. And I came across John Sarno and his back book. I'm looking to see if I have it here. No, I don't. I have different one here. But I remember reading John Sarno's book initially in my 20s as well. And when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I had this book, and I remember donating it to the library. I never kept it. So I bought it again. And so what I remember was that some people read it and they get the healing. For some people, some pieces resonate. For me, even when I read it in 20s, it wasn't like I was healed from it. I wasn't one of those
What
people.
kind of book is
It's
this?
a
I don't think
so
I've
it's a
ever.
really, yeah, it's really about mind body connection and how,
Okay.
our unconscious emotions. For example, John Sarno talks about anger and rage, how they can actually contribute to the pain. So he's kind of like a pioneer when it comes to mind body
Wellness. Like what
conditions.
you're, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And then, the whole science since then evolved over the years. So I got his book, but I didn't really everything he was saying just to pieces. And then somehow I found Alan Gordon, who's at that time didn't have a book. His book is called The Way Out, and a lot of um, clients that I work with, they've read the book. They find me through Pain Reprocessing Therapy Center. So,
Okay.
when I found Alan, he didn't have a book. He was posting on a blog, and I read everything he wrote about neuroplastic pain and about the brain's role in pain, especially in the chronic pain, and how we can relieve it, how we can work, with our emotions, somatic tracking. Um, and I've started applying everything he was reading. And what I've noticed during those 8 months was that I was better after applying his work. And every time I would go to the physical therapy, I would get worse. So it was
Oh.
kind of like a ping pong. I was feeling
Mm-hmm.
better, and I'm like, but I still have to go to the physio. Let me go. And I actually worked with a squat. I'm not probably pronouncing it properly,
The
therapist.
which
So
one?
somebody,
Straw?
thank you. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I couldn't
You're
hear
doing
you
it
cut out. I was like, I
perfectly.
think she said
Yeah.
straw.
Yes, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but thank you
No,
for
you're
that.
good. I couldn't hear you. So I was
Um,
like, I was making sure that I like was following you. You're good.
yeah. Um, and I work with someone who specializes, who've seen, scoliosis. But again, because I had that chronic pain and my brain was already in such a high alert, I ended up in situations where, the guidance that was given to me in terms of exercises and movement, my brain was almost like I was taking it to the extreme. So I ended up doing my physiotherapy 3 times a day to get rid of the pain. I was questioning whether I'm walking correctly, and like I started to worry, if I'm putting my foot down because I feel the pain, am I engaging that glute correctly? And is my foot landing on the ground correctly? Like, having all these preoccupied thoughts around my movement and whether I'm contributing to my pain or not. So it's really like I had a lot of that hypervigilance around the pain and
Okay.
solving it. I was preoccupied with it all the time. And reading through Alan's blog post made me realize that all of that thinking, preoccupation, that hypervigilance, me trying to get it 100%, like almost like I want to get A+ on every physio visit because I did so many workouts and I did them correctly, right? I moved that,
Yeah.
contributed to my chronic pain and was further
Wow.
driving that pain. So our brain is fascinating when it comes to that. I
Yeah, I'm
literally
interested in
remember
this.
Yeah, I literally remember doing the workouts 3 times a day and going to the therapist and having them look at me. Am I doing the movement the way it's supposed to look? And as you know, with scoliosis, some of the movements, you know, they will not look perfect.
They
It
will.
has, and for us, I also think it's so important to do a movement that feels good in our body, regardless of how it's supposed to look like,
Yep.
right?
100%.
So when you like preoccupied with this, I'm doing a glute bridge. In what second do I engage my glutes so that that bridge is looking perfectly right?
Mhm. Yeah, I love those.
It's it's kind of
Those are
like
one of my favorites.
obsession. It's kind of like obsessive thinking when it comes to,
It's like
doing that work.
overreactive.
Totally.
Yes. So
Hmm.
that's like my question there is like, I don't know, I read like you also like suffered from panic attacks as well. And like I've
Yes.
had so many. Is
Yeah.
there a connection there with pain and panic
Yes.
attacks?
Yes.
What?
And anxiety. Hmm.
Yeah, can
As
you
well.
go into that? Just because
Yeah.
I definitely I suffer from anxiety and I
Yeah.
apparently depression now. So yeah, I'm just trying to find like the connection. That's why I was like, I can't
Yeah.
wait to talk to Agnes because this is like what
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn now. So why is that connected?
Yeah. So we know that our brain, when our nervous system is in that high alert, our brain just scans our environment, internal and external. And when it does that scanning, which it does for everybody, it just picks up on the signals and almost like treats them like it's a high alert, something to really pay attention to. So,
Mm.
our brain role is always to keep us safe, and in keeping us safe, it doesn't mean that, for example, I'll make up a story. I want to go to the, let's say, movie theater tomorrow, and it's my first time going after a year or something, right? Um,
Hmm.
my brain, although I'm excited about it, my brain might read that, may sense that excitement, and might just misread it and may think, in the past, when she went to the movie theater with her back pain, she was really worried. She was really feeling in pain, right? So it predicts based on our past experiences, based on how we behaved in the past and wants to keep us safe. So then, me going to that movie theater tomorrow, when I'm super excited to see a new movie with kids, my brain will start, you know, in that protective mode, will start, sending a little bit of pain, a little bit of anxiety, or a little bit of panic attack. Whatever in the past was your brain's choice to keep you protected, right?
Like a
Um,
trigger almost? Like
it's
how we have
almost like
like,
a yes. So it's a
wow.
trigger. It's always it's amazing because it's almost like we have internal security guards here, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about
Wow.
security guards, they always scan the environment, what's happening. Our brain is like that. Like even as we are speaking right now, our brains is like tuned into what's happening all around us. We're not paying attention to it, but our brain is. And based on that, it predicts whether it has to invoke that alarm or not. And how did we are, in a similar situation, how did we react to that in the past? And based on that data gathering, it will then determine whether, what's the appropriate, I want to say drink of choice. I don't know what that was coming up for me, but I feel like it's fitted.
But it's true. It's true. Like what do you do? That's really, really interesting and makes a lot of sense. Like I think I'm where like you were like years ago, like just doing the research now, because it's been 7.5 years since mine. I really haven't. I've just been living life like I don't even have scoliosis
It's
or
amazing.
spinal.
And so what
I
I want
mean,
to
it's
say,
painful, but I haven't done anything to help
yeah,
myself until now. So
totally. And so for me, so I want to go back because you asked about the question
yeah.
about the car accident. So the 8 months
Yes.
I've recovered, I was happy. I had a routine. I still work with that physiotherapist. They had me set up on a program, but I knew like 3 times a week is not good. Sorry, 3 times a day is
Yeah.
not good. Uh, the program still wasn't ideal. I kind of looking back, it was the same kind of workout every single day of the week, but I was doing well. I've used Alan's techniques. I was doing really well. And within a year, we were in a car accident and on a highway here with my husband and kids. And the first thing that happened is as we got hit from behind, my husband looked at me and he's like, "Are you okay? Should I call an ambulance?" And I just want to say I was okay.
Okay,
But
good.
going through that physiotherapy during those 8 months, what I've heard there was as much as you doing like you in a like we have to work through your muscles to that, it's a lot of work you have to do to recover from pain. It's not as bad as people who are in your condition and they're in a car accident. That would be worst case scenario for you. And I've told that to my husband. I'm like, it's not as bad. I'm not a car accident victim. I'm like, that would be worse. So then all of us
True.
kind of, I've picked that up. He had it at the back of his, what I mean, head. So when we got hit right away, like, are you okay? It's almost like, I don't know what we were thinking. My hardware will fall off or
Yeah.
after this, it's you're in that high alert. You get really stressed out. It's not a fun
Mhm.
thing to go through. It was a person that literally didn't pay attention, didn't really hit us from behind on a highway. So it's a high speed. um, so, I within 2 weeks, I ended up in back in the chronic pain. It started very gradually, and that recovery took me a year.
Oh my goodness. After
And
already putting in those 8 months of work,
yes,
correct?
yes. And what
Mm.
I've learned from it was that there was still work that I had to learn. I went into that recovery with expectations that because I already know everything about neuroplastic pain, I was also getting the certification at the same time as we were hit. I know it all. I've already worked with, I've helped people already. This will not take me, I'm like, maybe 4 months. And then just to be more eager, an let's talk about the A plus personality. This thought came in, 4 months, that's a long time. Why not do it in 2?
Oh no.
So that put, so then I had that expectations. The first
You're
time it
putting
took
like
8 months,
extra pressure on
pressure.
yourself.
Yes. I'm like, first time 8 months, let's cut it to 4, but let's do it even better. Let's do 2 months and you dealt with the pain. So when we talk about healing journey, like who does this? Well, like we have no control over it.
We don't.
And then, so our personalities also play a role in that chronic pain. Like when we try to, push, when we give our body like a deadline, when we trying for everything to look perfect and we have like a script of because we know it all. So it was a big lesson for me to learn. And I want to say, I think I've learned it really well because I've recovered. And then, we had a fourth car accident, not about a year later. And when that one happened, so sometimes I'm being asked, like, was it as bad? In terms of car damages, it was equivalent, those two. So I can only speak from that perspective. Because when
Okay.
we got that fourth time when it happened, I literally said, I'm not going through this. I will not be impacted. I did the safety, going through the pain reprocessing. Part of that process is learning how we can bring safety internally to ourselves. And that is done through, our own work, nobody else's. Um, so I've used those, safety messages that I know that worked for me. And also when I
Okay.
got home, because after all, it was a car accident, so our body will go through normal inflammation response as they should. I just did also supported the body through like anti-inflammatory framework and just making sure that, I didn't that day, I just took it easy. I read a book. I'm like, nothing happened. It was a car accident. People have those. I'll be fine. I will not be impacted. I did a lot of, I shouldn't say I did a lot. I did somatic tracking. I just tuned in to make sure all the emotions from that accident were processed. And,
A lot
you
of
know,
work mentally. Like that's a lot of like
yes.
it's a lot of discipline goes into being able to like I feel like get to that. Like being able to control
Mhm.
those thoughts and like understand believing yourself instead of like
Yes.
past responses that you just fall back on and
Yes.
really overcoming and healing and
Yeah.
protecting yourself in the way that you want to be protected. It seems like you
Yeah.
put in a lot of work to like get
So
where you
it's,
are, and that's really amazing. Do you
thank you.
mostly live pain free?
Yeah.
That's
I fall
awesome.
down the stairs too. My office is in the basement. I fall down
Oh
this week.
no. Oh no. I'm glad you're
Quite
okay
funny
after all of
story.
these things.
I quite funny story because I always imagine being an older person falling down the stairs and I feel a little bit older. And I did fall down the stairs.
Oh
And I
no.
regret 4 days after, I regret not taking pictures because I think it was quite hilarious.
Like while you were on the floor,
Like just
selfie.
lying down, you know what I mean? With like,
I would have done it, yeah. But hopefully no falls the next time, but don't fall.
yeah, but it's not an experience to go through. I did have a bit of a right rib that was, bothering me, but it's not
Okay.
something that turned into chronic pain. But I also
Good.
apply the same skills afterwards, right? So we know that our brain creates pain neural pathways, and those are, we can rewire them, we can create new pathways that are not pain related, but those pathways stay in there like dormant, so they can be reactivated. So yes, it does require a bit of
Mm,
that awareness, because if I didn't click in, I could have a
right.
totally different story after that even fall that I did this week. Although I've done so much, right, helping others, it could have been, oh, this is like really bad, like I fall down, like, is my back okay? Is my, you know what I mean? And that would turn into, it's easy, I find, even for me, when I start, these thinking, is my back okay? So to then let my thoughts kind of wander off and add more to that story. So not that I'm dismissive or not ignoring my back. I tune into it. I feel it. I've processed that whatever happened at the stairs, but I've processed in this case with lightness versus, so after I didn't do the same thing with the, after that Ford car accident, I was kind of really focused on the safety. Here
Yeah.
I did here I did a little bit of a safety, but I did more of that lightness because, sometimes that is helpful in our lives too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, I do want to chat a little bit because you said I did a lot of mental work. I find that it's more about once you are aware of the thoughts and once you're aware of your patterns, it's easy then to switch and kind of pick it up, but then it's that consistency and that persistence in terms of this is where I want to be. So once you know where you want to be, I find it's easier for us to anchor and bring those practices into daily life. So for me, that anchoring goes back to when I was, given that Tylenol 3, I was in bed. Like I knew my youngest one was getting a mom in bed, and my two older kids had amazing mom that was driving them to all the practices, all the, job interviews, whatever they wanted to do. And I felt like my youngest is not getting that mom. I also knew I want to be strong and I want to be in my grandkids' lives. I didn't want to
Yeah.
be like a lady that will ended up in the wheelchair. And literally, that's where I was picturing myself in my lowest, right? I'm like, and you also, when, let's be quite realistic, when we read about, expectations for people with scoliosis, like there's so much different information there. It's so easy for our brain to like kind of recall that information when we are in our lowest, right? Because we are already, you know what I mean, dealing with so many
Yeah.
issues. And brain does this, again, to protect us. So evolutionary speaking, our brain will always look for like that worst case scenario, and so that then we can come up with a plan on how to get out of it. So
Out of
back
it.
in, yeah, so back in like prehistoric times, right? um, our brain would kind of predict if, are we going to meet that giant tiger? How can we, escape? What could happen to us? So always looking for those, kind of negatives, worst case scenarios. We are kind of evolutionary wired to do that. And because our current environment changed, we evolved as people. We no longer deal with like giant tigers in a jungle, but
Yeah.
that part of the brain, that prehistoric part of the brain, is still there, and it didn't evolve. There's other parts of the brain that evolved since, and hence we can, we can change our thoughts, right? We have the awareness
Wow. I didn't even think
about
of
it.
that. Like I didn't know anything about that. That's really interesting because it really connects everything like full circle, like
Hmm.
everything that you've just
Yeah,
talked about in it. Like, wow.
yeah.
Because it
So
just,
when we
yeah, tell me more. I'm like, wait, tell me more.
so when it really comes to that pain, right? Like as much as, it's there to really protect us, it's for us then to figure it out. Why is it coming on? What are maybe the things that are unresolved? What are the things that are maybe like triggering to us? What are the stressors in our life? What else is going on? And, for, I want to say, majority of my clients, a lot of it is just like me and you. We just get so busy with our lives that we go on without really, looking after our body, looking after ourselves, even asking, what do we really want? What do we really enjoy? Right?
Yeah. It just gets lost in the day to day, I feel. Like everything goes
Yeah,
before you. Like,
totally.
and
Yeah,
it
that's
shouldn't be
such a
that
common
way,
story.
but it's so
Yeah, that.
true. Do you think because of like, this is like so random, but it just like
Hmm.
feel like it fits what we're talking about? Do you think like because I don't know if you heard it growing up, like how people just say, "Oh, it's all downhill from there." Like, do you think like that also like programs the
Yeah.
brain to and people to just look at pain in a way that they're supposed to be in it, and that's just how it's supposed to be, because I feel like I've heard that so many times growing up, and I feel like I'm just now realizing like there are ways to feel better. And like,
Hmm.
do you feel like that part of it, like people hearing like, oh, like
Yeah. So it's
it's all downhill
programming.
from
It's that
here.
totally, it's that programming, that conditioning our beliefs around the pain to our beliefs around the age as well, right? Or like, or even like, I have like, remember going to the doctors, oh, you have scoliosis, of course you're in pain, like, right? That association of,
That's
and
so
I'm like,
true, and you weren't.
but there's so many people with scoliosis who are living pain free, so you can't, you know what I mean? So how can we,
Yeah.
so I think, so another thing that our brain does is it will always find evidence for what we want. So if we want to find, that evidence for people are older and have pain, our brain will find it. Versus if we want to find the evidence that that's not true, older people doesn't mean they have pain, or people with scoliosis doesn't mean they have pain, our brain will then find it. So a good example, I think everybody can relate to that, is when we want to, if we are driving and I ask, there's different color cars on the road, which one do you like? You'll say red one. All of a sudden you see all the red cars on the road.
Yeah. That's so wow.
Or
That's a
which
great
car you want to
example.
buy, and you tell me, oh, I want to buy this one. All of a sudden you start looking, and within few minutes your brain will pick up that car you wanted to buy.
Yeah. I
uh,
feel like I got my car and I'm like, why does everyone have this car now? But like it's that. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. So what year did the Simple Beautiful Wellness come was born?
a bit,
Oh,
yes, that's such a good question.
yeah.
I would have to probably look it up.
That's
Because
okay.
I did bits and pieces without being like, you know what I mean, officially out
Yeah.
there. I do want to say it wasn't until that Ford car accident that it was my eureka moment. Oh my God, why am I like holding without really going and helping people and trying to do here and there? Like everybody needs to know about it. That's how I felt after.
Yeah.
So I felt like that Ford car accident was definitely like catalyst for me showing up versus me just helping whoever came, you know what I mean? Whoever
Yeah,
found
it came
me.
your way.
Um,
Found.
yeah, yeah, because going through that fourth one and really seeing that power that, I walked away and nothing really, it kind of solidified the tools and the practice, because once you really know, it's so easy to apply. And even when I say tools and practice, really the way I'm looking at it now, it's really your whole life and how that's
Yeah.
supportive. Yeah, because
It's like a
we can't
different
really,
way
it is
to
it is a
live.
different way. Hmm.
That's like, I don't know, I'm very interested in it. That's why I just like, I don't know, I can't believe like, no, we don't like think that your brain, it's such an important organ, and it is just connected to everything. And I guess I like personally have never, I don't know, I've always tried to not like, I guess like be positive, but like this is like what you do and like what you've discovered and what you share on your platform. It's just so much more than that. It's more in detail than I feel like it really, like, I mean, you're proof you live pain free. So I'm just excited too.
Yeah.
I joined your 5-day challenge, by the way. I'm gonna do that with
Awesome,
you.
thank you. It's next week. Amazing.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah,
Monday, and that's where I was going with it. So I'm like, you know
yeah,
what? I've been following you for so long. I'm like, I can't wait to talk to her. I
yeah.
think I'm going to join the challenge because I do that. I feel like a lot of the things we spoke about, I do. Like I had like memories, and then you're there, and then it's like your back hurts, and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this back pain just
yeah,
all of a suddenly came on. But now what you're saying is like it's our body trying to protect us from similar moments. Like,
yeah. So, I looked at it, let's say, I don't know why the car analogy obviously speaking to me today, that that brain is like that supercomputer, but we still need oils and everything else in the car for it to run smoothly, right? um
Yeah.
so for me it's really, and it's also like really amazing because we don't often talk about it. I think now in that whole holistic world is more, there's more doctors and people who actually emphasize the brain's role. But when we look at it, it has impact on our hormones. It has, how our heart beats, how we breathe. It's connected to our autonomic nervous system. Like it's really like a supercomputer that we have it. And also like what we know from, the work that's done through all the other thinkers and scientists and researchers is we can actually program the brain when it comes to conscious and subconscious mind. So we can actually almost like treat it as like our own personal GPS. And when it comes to chronic pain, we can use it the same way. Like it's really, I'm going to say it's simple to do it. It's not easy, but we can literally program it to be out of pain. And then our brain will help us to, to carve that road to being pain-free. Um, that pain-free challenge, I love it because to me, it's really bringing it back to the fundamentals, really to like, what's the oil that our body, that our car needs to run it, because that is super important as well. So brain is, really where we do that neural pathway reprogramming, but we also need the fuel. The better the fuel, the better we can actually have the neural pathways and the neurons in the brain. So, I love combining everything holistically. I always look at a whole person because that's what worked for me. Um,
Definitely.
yeah,
Instead of just like like Tylenol that you don't know is going to affect someone. Like not everybody's the same. We need a holistic approach because we're
yeah,
ourselves and we're a whole person and everyone is different. Like
yeah,
you're only 3%. I'm still on like that. I can't believe you found that out through like Googling. Like
yeah.
3% of
And
people
and
get
it's
depression
not
from that.
easily, and it's not easily Googleable. Like it took me time
A
to find
while.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's not something that like, of course, my regular doctor would not know about it. And who reads the inserts on them? I know I wasn't there yet
No,
at
no.
reading the insert. I am there now, but I wasn't there at that time. At that time, I
I'm
wasn't
getting
even
there.
even reading labels on the food. Orange juice, yeah, let me buy the conventional one that was like flavor and the color was added, right? It says
Yep.
orange juice.
I'm like, that's literally where I am now. I'm like, all right, Jack, you're 33. Gotta start looking at labels, gotta start getting like, let's go. So that's funny that you say that. But yeah, it's just what?
I was like, it wasn't
Yes,
working
I
for
read
me.
about this a little bit
Yeah,
about
it
you.
wasn't working for
Yeah.
me. So what I did is, after that Ford car accident, I'm like, I gotta work on my strength training. If by any chance this happened when I'm 70, I'm like, no way, my body. I'm not talking about pain, but I'm like physically going through it. Can my body
Yeah, and
recover, right? If you
recover.
have no like, my muscles were non-existent. Let's start with that. I'll disclose fully. For me, lifting 2 pounds was like an effort, right? Uh,
Okay.
because I went through so many years of physical
Yeah,
therapists, and they just, like bless their hearts. I wasn't progressing, right? I
I
wasn't
agree.
doing, I was just stuck at lift your leg, put it down,
Yeah, if you do
yeah,
the same
very
movements all
simple
the time, you become like you
every single
plateau.
day. And they were
Yeah, every
super,
single day.
yeah. So I've signed up with Beth at Strength and Spine for like a
She's
private sessions,
awesome.
and she is amazing.
She
I
is. She's
love
really,
her.
really cool.
I love my program, but what I really love about it was, so I've signed up initially for like 6 months. I'm like, let's see how it goes. And my goal was literally to eventually in my lifetime. So I want to disclose my goal was in my lifetime to be able to lift 5 pounds.
Okay. Good
And
goal.
right, but also like what a small goal in my
Hmm.
lifetime. Like this is how small, like this is somebody who came out from like years of physiotherapist, who had chronic pain, who at one point in life thought that lifting a mug from a shelf is causing her pain. So
Yeah.
my goal was to do the 5 pounds. And, so for me, we started very slow. We started, I think, with like not even probably first weeks, no weight at all before I start moving to 2 pounds. By the 6 months, I actually was at the 5 pounds, and I could not believe it that I've done it in 6 months. But I also had some of those exercises that were, some of them were similar, or I could see like linkage to the physio, or if, when we progressed the workout, when I had to get even, strong, heavier weight or more complex movement, my brain would, oh, do you think you can do it? What if you hurt?
What?
Like that was my brain would come up,
Oh,
right? Um,
okay.
and I remember for me, from my physiotherapy sessions, the bridge was the one that always triggered flare-ups for some reason.
The glute
Although I,
bridge?
the glute bridge, although I did it
Okay.
perfectly. I had it assessed by the therapist. It was, from a movement perspective, from the, how you do it technically, it was done perfectly. It was the exercise that just flared my back. I was always in pain after it. So I remember when Beth added into my exercise program, and like my brain would, start, all of these thoughts will come in. What if you're in pain tomorrow?
Hmm.
What if the pain comes back? And,
You had to
doing this
control
work for
those?
such a long, yeah, doing the work for such a long, it's kind of like, to me, it comes like as a second awareness. I'm like, yeah, I hear it. I'm like, I'll be fine. I'm gonna be okay. And I can talk to myself through it. I can, send myself those messages of safety.
That's really, really amazing because it's not easy for people to do. Like it, like for me, I just know, like, and I know, so I just really like, I'm amazed by like how
Hmm.
much like you've practiced this and persevered and like you, so what happened next? Tell me more.
Yeah. So, you know, it is, but also for me, I wasn't expecting it, because for so many years I was already pain free. I just didn't expect it that this will come up. Um, for me, when I do like a workout that looks to me like a regular workout, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I worked through that. It came up, I think, like I've been with Beth for over a year now. I think it came up like 3 times through
Okay.
whole,
The
through
whole
all the
time.
time we've been working together. But it's definitely interesting process. Um, and it's something that, like, as you go through the life, there will be almost like experiences and things that will come up to test you and see how you're doing. Do you still, pay attention to how you feel internally? Can you still, um, use those practices that you have and the tools that you have to apply it, so then that pain doesn't come back?
So you can really just live a consistent
Yeah,
free life. And like you
yeah,
said, I love that you said that earlier. You're like, it's not easy, but it's simple. And I'm like, I just made the connection with most simple, beautiful wellness. I love the word that you chose now because like I never looked at the word simple like that, but they're completely different, easy and simple. So like
yeah.
kudos.
You know,
I really like
we
it.
are totally, and we are so conditioned to kind of, I have this pain, I'll take this, or I do this, and the pain disappears, right? So all of the work
Yeah.
when we're looking at it, of, getting out of the pain, it's pretty simple. It requires that consistency. It requires you anchoring in what your goal is, right? What that purpose is. And it's not overly complicated, but still, because we have this conditioning of, I have pain, can I do this to be out of pain? That is then contributing to, to that fear of, can I actually live
Like,
pain free, right? Um, and then, adding to that, for anyone, and I know that's consistent, I was there too, when we live with pain, that pain becomes part of you. So how do we shed that part? How do we, take that part, be okay with, being there, and at the same time do the work that's required to be, to live pain free and be that new version of you that pain is not impacting, right? And how would that life look like for you to support you on that journey?
what would you, going off that, what would be your advice for anybody on the beginning of this journey? Like, what would you, yeah,
Hmm, that's such a good question
I know
because
you could think about it
I
a
have
little,
no,
season
no,
it,
no,
season.
no, no, no. Because what I would say is to be really patient with yourself and allow yourself the grace. I think when we on that healing journey, when we have that hope of being pain free, we want to rush through it and we want to get there quicker. But it's really not a marathon. It really does require kind of pacing yourself out through the process because there's so many layers to the healing journey. There's so many layers we have to kind of like unravel to go through it. Because it's our personality plays a part, our habits play a part, our conditioning plays a part. And then all of that, how do we see the world? Do we have any limiting beliefs? Do we know how to process emotions? And do we take that time to do it as things come up? And do we really listen to our bodies? Which is really like that's what I love doing with my clients because I feel like we're just not taught how to pause and listen to the body, and it speaks to us all the time. And really, when we're in pain, it's our body yelling to us. It's that last moment where we can, it's like something is not working. It's trying to wake us up. Um,
Wow.
so I would say you just slow down. And I know if I say this, I'm on the other side of living with pain, and it's just so hard to enjoy that journey when you are in it. But as much as you can, that's really what it's all about, just pacing and knowing and trusting that, whether you listening, if somebody's listening to our podcast, you probably that's what you needed to hear. And whatever else you're doing, you I believe you're doing all the right things, getting, seeing the right people at the time you need to see. So it's that trust in the process, in how things work out as well. I
I
hope
love
that
it.
wasn't too long,
No,
but
it's
it's like,
really, no, I love it because honestly, it's where I'm at. And that's why I'm like really excited for the challenge and just being here talking to you because it's definitely like, pain. I guess I've always looked at it like, oh, it's just supposed to be there because I have this
mhm,
and because that's what
mhm,
everybody told me. And now I'm just,
mhm,
like I knew Instagram was around, but I had like, I don't know, I didn't notice how big the community got for scoliosis since
mhm.
2016 when I like
Oh,
kind of started and dabbling in the
yeah.
twisted wonder. But now like finding you and like you said, Beth, it's just really like, no, I don't have to be this person that's in pain. I don't have to
Mhm.
ignore my scoliosis. Like this is a part of me and I need to, like you said, change your habits, implement it in your life because if you want it, that's what you have to do. It's not just gonna come.
Yeah,
So
it's available to all of us. I think we just so often are, it's hard for us to see it. And I totally get it because I've been there. Like when you live with chronic pain, it's kind of hard to see. Um, I do love as well that the community is so big. And I do have to say, like, I've never, living in a very small town, never knew anybody with scoliosis. I actually never knew anybody with scoliosis until like a few years ago when I started doing more things on Instagram, because there's nobody, like, I don't have a family history of scoliosis. Um,
right.
so,
So
I'm kind of like a unicorn from where I come
yeah.
from.
He's like, I just got curves and no one
Got it.
else around
That,
me has
you
this.
know, that obviously was something that was meant for me. I received it. I think I've learned the lesson. I hope to, help others with it, because I really don't think we have to live in pain. I think, and I don't mean it in a like, I know all of us have a choice, but it's just so hard to see the choice if we don't even see it, right?
If you don't
Um,
even try.
yeah, yeah. So
Do
it's
you
been, I know,
think
mhm.
no, keep going.
I know it's
I'm
been
good.
amazing experience for me meeting so many people with scoliosis, and chatting with everyone because I'm learning as
Best.
well. Yeah.
It really is. It's like, oh, I'm so happy. What,
Mm-hmm.
who, I'm thinking, yeah, it's kind of off topic, but I'm a little curious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think like what you do and like paint, does that also connect with like, because I know there's physical pain, but the things that
Mm-hmm.
you implement in your day-to-day life and what you do to help people and you've helped yourself, can you use these skills and what you learn for like emotional pain as
Yes,
well?
yes, great question. So what we actually know is that chronic pain, where if we were to do this functional MRI, which is like a scan of the brain, the area that lights up for chronic pain is the same area that lights up for emotional pain. So chronic pain is anything over 6 months. And so this is why the whole mind body comes in. It's not very specific. There's a lot of different illnesses it can help with, but it's really helpful with like this, I want to say dysregulated nervous system, but it's like, you know, when we're looking at stress, how it impacts us, it's really, what emotions do we have? Do we know how to process? A lot of times you know, um, it's us and understanding even how we holding on to things, right? As they happen in life. And what stories do we have about those things? And those stories often, I'm pretty sure 100%, have that emotional component to them.
Wow. I'm so excited to learn. Like I feel like I've already learned so much, but it's just it gives me hope. So it's nice to have that because, it just
Yeah.
you have to be ready, and I finally am. So it just feels nice that I'm ready and like there's people
Mm-hmm.
like you that are out here helping us because you've
Mm-hmm.
gone through this. What's the sign up? When is the cutoff for your 5 day free challenge?
So it's running next week. So depending when this will be released, but they if they want to get in touch with me, I can probably walk them through that very quickly too.
I don't know when it will come out, but you know what? I'm gonna post it on my Instagram if this comes out
Okay.
later. So that way we'll get the word out there anyway. But thank you everybody. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye.